So here's a dive through a side passage at Jackson's Blue. And Jackson's Blue has a super pretty entrance. That's it right there. So that leads out to this big old pond that you access through a park. And this is the other view if you just spun the camera around. It's a big tube room that has these boulders that have fallen down and these really, really pretty air pockets on the ceiling. And this room ends right here with this crack, and you drop down this crack from like 50 feet to 90 feet, so it's a significant drop that you got to go skirt 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 down, and then you've got your choice of places to go, and we went right around there, so not super far back, but a neat side passage. This side passage is kind of small, so she's squeezing through some spots there and squeezing through some spots here, but we do that to pop out into something cool. Anyone who enjoys small spaces and caves is a psychopath. So the only reason you go through them is to see pretty things. That's kind of like sitting in a car. Like sitting in a car sucks. It's very uncomfortable. But if you sit in the car for the whole road trip, then you get to wherever you're going, and maybe that's neat, or maybe it's something lame. But this happened to be really neat. So we've got this pristine floor, clay and sand, and these super neat ceilings, and we have to kind of skirt skirt and shoop de whoop around some spots. But it's a passage off the main passage. I actually don't even think it's on the map, but it's relatively popular, and it has some neat clay mounds like that off the left side that took forever and a half to form, as well as just some wide and fun passages like this one right here to swoop around. So just swimming around, enjoying it, nice, easy, quiet dive. I think this one was about 3 hours long. And then at the end of that, you pop out into this big room, which is part of the main passage. And the main passage here is characterized by wide, wide rooms that are relatively low. This is it's 1,500 feet back or so, and it's got that big boulder that fell off to her right side. And I swim over top of that just to give a little reference to how big this room is, and it drops down maybe 20 or 30 feet, so you've got plenty of space there, and you drop down into this passage here with the boulders on the bottom and the pretty scallopy ceiling, and the floor, which is covered in sand and fossils and all kinds of cool stuff like that. And the walls are covered in fossils too. I mean, you don't even have to swim 1,000 feet back to see cool stuff. You just stop, stare at the wall for a minute, and you'll see shark's teeth and whale bones and stuff like that. And the floor here is covered in that fine sand with fossils in it. And this is another side passage we took to just kind of skirt around, and it pops out here into the main passage, which this is just a hop from that fissure that kind of came down, which we call the chimney at the entrance, that crack that falls all the way down. And instead of exiting through that same crack, there's at least one other way to get back into that big tube that leads to the entrance, that big cavern with all the boulders. And we took another way to get out, which is a little bit smaller, but it's also really, really pretty, and that's what we're doing right here. So it's very sandy, very clay, with these huge, huge boulders above you and these pretty cracks in them. And you just shoot through all that. And there's a spot that's a little bit smaller. That's that spot right there. You can see her fins, and she's moving through there. But after you pop through that, you're all the way back up in that big tube room with the air pockets on the ceiling and the boulders on the floor. And if it was daytime, it was actually night when we were diving here, but if it was daytime, you could see the daylight coming out of there. So that's Jackson Blue.